everyone, it's Cathy Zielske. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a card that features some fun, sketchy florals with some Distress ink watercoloring combined with a cool new tab set from me to create sort of a whimsical and graphic card all tied into one. Let's take a look at the products I used to create this card. All right, we're starting out with some new stuff from Simon Says Stamp, and this is part of a new release, Friendly Frolic. Now this is the Sketch Lotus Flower Set. It comes with some really sweet sentiments and this huge floral. I love how big this is. And you can also get the matching die to cut it out. The other thing I'm using today is also new from Simon, and this is designed by me. This is a set called Tabbed Sentiments. And all of these little sentiments are designed to work with the tab dies that you see on the left. Some are going to work with the larger tab die and some with the smaller. I included both the kinds of tabs that fold as well as just the straight up cut tabs. And there's just a huge bunch of sentiments that I think would be great for scrapbooking as well. Now, I'm going to be doing some Distress ink watercoloring today. I've got picked raspberry, spiced marmalade, mustard seed, crushed olive, and twisted citron that I did not end up using. Got some VersaFine ink that I will be stamping with, and a little bit of embossing using some Brutus Monroe powder. Got some purple tape, and for cardstock I've got Neenah Solar White. I've got some Tim Holtz watercolor paper, and I've got some Simon Says Stamp fog and black that will be used in this card project today. And of course, I will be using the Misti tool because, come on, let's be real, can't stamp without it. And I have one little frame die that I will also be using to cut a panel. So let's dive into the actual creation. First things first, got to stamp this big floral down. Now, it's huge. I mean, it's the size of the palm of my hand. So I have a piece of the Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock cut down. I'm going to be using VersaFine because it's such a nice inky black ink, and I think this works really well with watercolor cardstock. Now I'm stamping on the smooth side of the cardstock. There is also a nubby side, but sometimes I just prefer to use the smooth. I think it works for me better for stamping. But here's the beauty of the Misti. So I want this to be darker, so you just re-ink it and stamp it down. I'm sorry, people. I believe this is, I think this is Misti magic, because there it is. And it's meant to be sketchy like this. That's not a misregistration of my stamping, not to impugn my stamping. Okay, to get painting, I'm smushing my Distress cubes into the mat. This is the picked raspberry. Mist it with some water and start painting. Now, I want to well, you should know this. I should not have to tell you this. I am not the world's greatest watercolor artist. I would not use the term artist and watercolor at all in the same sentence when talking about myself. That said, let's say you want to dabble in a little watercoloring, but you don't want to invest in the watercolors, but you have Distress inks, I just think they are so versatile. The colors are great. Look at how bright and happy this pink is, this picked raspberry. And they're just so all-purpose for pretty much anything you can think of. So I love playing with the Distress inks to watercolor. Now, what I decided to do was keep the palette simple. I don't always feel really confident, for example, in Copic coloring something like this, or maybe picking a complicated palette of colors. So I just looked at the rainbow and chose my red, my orange, and my yellow. So the Roy aspect, you see that, how that Roy, yeah. And then just worked my way down, having the yellow be this big flower, because there's a lot of things you can do, right? You can go in and do all this magical shading, but if you're not very good at watercoloring, that's okay. You don't really have to be that good to make something that looks really pretty and has that watercolor feel. So I had picked two greens, and I ended up just going with the crushed olive. I just think it's a really cool color. It's gorgeous, and I just made a little darker there on that little, well, I don't know what that thing is, but all right. I set that aside to dry. Now here are the tabbed sentiments along with the tabs. You can kind of see the larger of the two will fit over some of the bigger ones, and then the smaller of the two will fit over the smaller ones. But the type in the tabbed sentiments, it's all the same size. It just depends on how much can fit in whatever tab you're going to create. Now I just picked the Miss You, and I'm using the Simon black cardstock. Just going to anchor this little scrap down and then take my embossing magic pad, get that powder on, especially with black cardstock. I have a small Versamark cube, and I like to use that for the smaller sentiments just so I don't waste ink and get it all over my Misti door. And I press that down, and now I'm going to hit it with some of this Alabaster Ultrafine powder from Brutus Monroe. And this is a new powder for me. I've tried it on a couple projects, and it's really nice. It's fine detail, so it doesn't puff up, and it's nice and white. Now, I needed to take a brush here and get some of the excess powder off. Even though I use the powder bag, I find that on black cardstock, that cardstock just wants to grab powder, and so if you want all those errant powder pieces off, just take a brush and brush them away. I heated up my tool and just hit this very quickly, and there is my Miss You. Now I'm just going to line up that tab, and you can see how that Miss You fits right in the top, which is where I want it, and you'll see why. I'm going to tape it down with some of my Thermoweb purple tape. And now it's time to start some die cutting. Okay, Spellbinders machine here. I've got the Platinum 6. Just going to run it through and pop it out. I'm going to peel carefully because even though the Thermoweb tape is low tack, depending on your humidity, it can stick, but there you go. It was perfect. Now the watercolor piece is dry, so I'm using that coordinating die to cut out this giant, glorious painted piece, and I just think it's so pretty. Again, I'm not an expert at watercolor, but I think this whole sketchy design, I just think it looks great. So there we go. And now one more panel, because I'm going to use this to ground my elements. And this is from a Lawn Fawn dotted panel set. I love that little dotted frame. All right, looks good. Now I'm going to go ahead and make my card base. This is a piece of Neenah Solar White 110 pound, and I'm scoring it top folding. It's going to be 4 1/4 wide by 5 1/2 tall. Setting that aside, and now I just want to place my elements before I stamp the sentiment that I'm using from the Sketch Lotus set, because I want to make sure it's all going to work together. And I'm going to stamp this down with the VersaFine ink. But at the last minute, I decided to add some clear hero powder and see how it gets kind of grayed out almost. I love this because you can coat it with that clear powder, and it really makes your black ink just pop and have that subtle raised little edge to it. All right, it looks good. Now I'm adding a tiny bit of thin adhesive to the back of my tab, and I want to line it up right on the edge there, so that it hangs off just like that. Doesn't that look cute? Just a little Miss You. Now I'm covering the entire back of this gray fog panel with tape so that I can lay down one solid piece of fun foam, and then I'm just cutting a little tiny piece to fill in that tab so that everything gets the same depth of loft, if you will. I love fun foam. Fun foam's, well, it's fun, let's be real. I'm going to use a little liquid adhesive here from Lawn Fawn. I just coat it on the back and then place that on the card base. And see how I have the margin equal all the way around? The gray is what I'm focusing on. I want that little black to kind of jut in there because I think it's kind of a cool, unexpected element. But now I'm just going to use the same liquid adhesive, place my floral bouquet. I just love it. I love it. Now I'm going to go ahead and add just some clear dots to finish out the card. And I do want to talk for a second about this tip. And I am saying tip with a P. I got a new tip, and it is the Scrap Perfect Small No Clog Writing Tip. And so far, I love this tip. So there you go. That finishes out the card. Just a little shine, and there you go. That's my finished card project for this video. Thank you so much for watching. By all means, check out the new release from Simon Says Stamp, Friendly Frolic. It's fun and it's frolicky. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, I want to just say, that's okay. We're all different. Okay, have a great day.